We are gathered here to fill you with
Have you heard of a serial killer that the police name the Face Ripper? His MO is to cut the face off of his victims. Then he wears their face as a mask the next time he attacks. Every victim the police have found, the Face Ripper has cut off their face. They report that the faces have been surgically removed with very clean cuts. It's what makes this a very unusual case. His victims mostly die from the loss of blood after he performed his surgery. Then he just leaves the victim there in pain and agony. He is being compared to Jack the Ripper, another unidentifiable serial killer. But unlike Jack the Ripper, this serial killer kills more than just women. He kills men, women, young, and old. It's like he's on a mission. One victim of his was a 65-year-old man. He was a widow, a retired teacher. He was a well-respected community leader. He was a sweet man that never bothered anyone. But for some reason, the killer chose him to be a victim. He was a husband, a father, and a grandfather. I would know, because I'm his granddaughter. And I want revenge. I've been hunting for him. I need to stop him. I don't want him to do this to anyone ever again. This has to end. I need to make myself a perfect victim to lure him in. I need to find out what makes him tick. The victims have to have something in common. Something that makes him want to stalk them. There has to be a connection that I'm missing. Something that triggers him specifically. I need to study a few cases of other victims that he surgically removed their faces. I don't want him to get away. I don't want to make any mistakes. I started my research in my local library, in their archives to see what I could find. I also searched for information through Google online. There were different articles with information about the Face Ripper's victims. Their obituary gives information about their lives and history. But what I could see were all so different. The Face Ripper's first kill on record was a priest. He was found in his confessional with his face removed and deceased. The investigators didn't find any clues at the scene. They thought this had to be a satanic ritual since he was killed so close to Halloween. But they found out this wasn't the case when they found his face at the next victim's place. The next victim was a housewife. She had 3 kids. Her husband was away on business. He travels for his career. Police found her in her bed, with her face cut off, dead. The priest's face was left there at a crime scene. Her face couldn't be found. He must have taken hers in exchange. And this continued for several more cases, and each victim was found without their faces. So, I dug a little deeper, and I came across some witness interviews, and I finally found the connections. All the victims were going to the same doctor's office, and they were prescribed the same medication.
Now,
let us take a little break, just for a moment for us to say. Please take this time to like and comment. We love to hear from you, for you to let us know you like what we do. And if you're new, please subscribe and become a part of our crew. Thank you. My grandfather had problems with sleeping. He was an insomniac. He tried everything. Until he found a doctor that prescribed him really strong sleeping pills. They helped him to rest really well. But the only thing is, I don't have a clue what's the doctor's name. And there were 6 doctors in this practice alone. My plan was to make an appointment with the office when I got home. I talked to the office and they got me in as a new patient. This will also help me with surveillance. The next day when I arrived, I found out 4 of the doctors were new to the practice and 1 had retired. The last doctor that was left, he was with the practices for years. His name was Dr. Eric Townsend, and he was the lead doctor in charge. This was his practice. This was his office. He told me that he knew my grandfather, and he was a very nice man. And what happened to him was terrible. It's something he just couldn't understand. He gave his condolences, and he answered every question I had. I didn't tell him about the connections I found, just in case he was the killer. I didn't want his senses to be aroused. But I did inform him I was having trouble sleeping due to my grandfather's murder. I was now full of anxiety, which I believe was causing me to have a sleeping disorder. He agreed and gave me a prescription for some sleeping pills. He told me this would help me to relax and chill, and he will check on me in about 2 weeks to see if the pills were helping me to sleep. Unfortunately, I really didn't find out much information I was looking for, but I knew the doctor's office connection wasn't wrong. So, I waited until the doctor's office closed. I was going to break in later that night to find some evidence that would support. I found a window that was unlocked, and I could climb through. I immediately started to look around and try to find some clues. I broke into Dr. Townsend's office to check his files on his patients. And what I found were meticulous notes that he made an observation. That these patients' faces were symmetrical. He noted they had perfect faces, and all the notes were on patient files that were the face ripper's victims. Dr. Townsend was the face ripper. He was obsessed with the perfect shaped face. He was our killer. I recorded this information on my phone, so I could send it out to the police once I got home. But Dr. Townsend came back to his office and found me. I set off a silent alarm in the office that alerted him to my presence. He told me now I know his secret. He can't let me escape. He told me he felt this way since he was a child. Watching movies of actors, actresses, and models, perfect faces always made him smile. But he knew his face wasn't symmetrical. His face wasn't perfect, and he hated it. He always hated the way he looked. He wanted his face to be perfect. He wanted to go to school to be a plastic surgeon. But his nerves would always get the best of him, which would make him have shaky hands. He couldn't become a surgeon. So instead, he became a general practice doctor instead. But he couldn't fight the obsession he had inside for perfection. He started to notice perfection in some of his patients' faces. He had to have their face for his own. Their faces were perfectly symmetrical. This is why he would prescribe them sleeping pills. It would make it easier for him. He would give them a strong sedative, so they wouldn't fight back when he broke in. He would perform his surgery and remove their face, and he would wear it as a mask to the next victim's place. And now you know my secret. I need to get rid of you. It is such a waste because, like your grandfather, your face is symmetrical too. Unfortunately for me, he was blocking the door. It was my only way out. I had no place I could go. But he didn't know that I kept a can of mace on my keychain. I sprayed the mace in his face, and I pushed him down on the floor. He screamed and writhed in pain as I made my way to the door. I ran as fast as I could to my car. I was happy to be safe as I drove off. I went to the police station and gave them all the evidence I found. The police officers left quickly to try to trace him down, but they never found him. They believe he left town. The police obtained a search warrant to check his home and office, where more evidence was found. There was a massive manhunt for Dr. Townsend, but they never found him. He got away. So please, beware, because he is still out there, and you could be his next victim. He is still searching for people who have a perfectly symmetrical face. No one is safe.